Hello and welcome to Shredded Cels episode 36. I am your host Alex Schmitz, and with me here today is Andrew Gleason.
Hi there.
Gretchen Snyder.
Hello.
Aaron Ford.
Oh, hey now.
And Ashley, I don't know your last name.
Thomas. Hi.
I should have asked that before we started the
High
podcast.
school with an Ashley Thomas. You don't look anything like her, though.
I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing.
Funny story, bro.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Aaron has no opinions.
I have no opinion.
All right. Playing it safe there, in case that Ashley Thomas could be listening. You never know.
What drives a man
doubt
to
that,
be
but then again,
neutral?
I didn't know her very well.
There you go. All right.
I have no opinion one way or the other.
Exactly.
All right.
Tell my wife I said hello.
And if you're listening to this podcast for the first time, you would be interested to hear that we are part of TechEds, which is part of AVW Productions, a media production organization here at Ohio University. We here at TechEds do all sorts of cool stuff with video games, movies, TV shows, anime, we got a blog, we got a YouTube page, all sorts of cool stuff. But here, we are here today to talk about anime specific. Well, I say anime, that's usually what we talk about, but we also go into other types of animation. So today we're actually going to be talking about the first two episodes of Korra Book 2, The Legend of Korra, the sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Before we get into that, there's one piece of news that I just heard about the other day, actually, that I personally think is pretty cool. The third Madoka Magica film is coming out in Japan late in October, and a theater in Columbus, I think it was the Gateway Film Center, is apparently going to be screening it, premiering it on December 6th in Columbus. So I am proposing that we get someone to drive us up there so we can see it.
Go.
I would totally do that.
That sounds pretty
fantastic.
Yeah. This movie, they've released two other movies, but they're more recap movies, just summarizing the story. This one is actually set after the TV show, so it's going to be brand new, and it's going to be awesome.
Which confuses me, because that's like an ending to like that series.
Well, have you seen any of the trailers?
No, I haven't.
Well, I'll have to send them to you.
Good, you should
Yeah, I
send them
wanna
to me.
see that.
I'll watch
Okay.
them.
I'll post it on Facebook the other day, tomorrow, or tonight, whichever you feel like.
Whatever it
Those
is today.
times.
Pretty much. And I suppose we should introduce, we have two new voices on the podcast for those of you who've been listening to Shred Cells. Aaron Ford is actually a sophomore who's our director here at TechEds.
Hello. I don't really watch anime, so this is kind of a new thing for me. I just kind of watch Korra, which is why I'm on for the Korra episode. I've been here for a year now, and I'm now on one of our other podcasts, PC Bamps, because I'm a PC gamer. But like I said, not a big anime fan, so they're going to talk about some stuff, and I'm going to be pretty quiet because I have no idea what's going on in things that aren't Korra related.
All right.
Fair
Well,
enough.
he's our specifically Korra expert over here.
Really?
That's why he's on this podcast.
I'm a knowledgeable source.
That's right.
Wow.
And Ashley, what about you? What's your experience with anime? You're actually a new member of TechEds, a freshman.
I am. I don't watch a lot of anime, but I loved Avatar: Last Airbender growing up, and then love Legend of Korra. So that's pretty much it.
You're more in the same boat than I thought we were.
That's right. And what's your major?
Media Arts and Studies. Hoping to do screenwriting and producing.
Awesome. All right. So usually we go around the table and discuss the animation we've watched since last time. For you guys, I guess no one has been on the podcast this year, actually, except for me. So you can talk about stuff you've been watching recently as well as over the summer, anything anime related or just animation in general. As for myself, I've just been keeping up with the things I've been watching. Attack on Titan is almost over, which makes me sad, but the recent episode was really good. Watsumote, just watched an episode of Servant X Service today that was actually really funny, so I enjoyed that a lot. We also rewatched the terrible film that we did a couple of years ago on the podcast, Sword for Truth, with a couple people at my apartment. So we got to indoctrinate some new people into that.
Indoctrinate.
Is that a word?
Indoctrinate.
I don't think that's
I can't speak today. I'm sorry, guys. But, got to show some people that terribleness. It's hilarious, but terrible. The best type of bad movie.
That's always good.
And we also rewatched Summer Wars, which is one of my favorite anime films of all time. And really enjoyed rewatching that on nice Blu-ray quality. So it was really shiny and beautiful.
That's a good movie.
Andrew, what have you been watching recently?
Well, I was first off on the Soul Eater podcast, so I have been on this
Oh, no,
Alex,
I forgot.
You forgot me.
I'm
I feel
sorry,
hurt now.
Andrew.
I feel hurt now. But otherwise, I really haven't watched that much animation in the last 2 weeks. I mean, other than Korra. Trying to think, did we watch anything particularly special? Oh, I've been showing my friend Archer, because he's never seen that show.
I've only seen a couple episodes of Archer, but it seemed pretty funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. I love that show. But I'm trying to, it's like the type of humor that he would appreciate. So I'm trying to like, indoctrinate him.
I'm sorry.
That's gonna be a new thing.
Indoctrination.
Indoctrinate. Okay, there we go.
You
I
are
said it
adding
right.
syllables that do not exist.
I know.
There's
I
no
just
K and
I just want there to be a K. I'm gonna invent it that way.
okay, fine. Then you can change it. We're just gonna make fun of you for it.
K, so I'll invent it that way.
And Aaron's gonna turn to a song. See, we're gonna
See?
tag team
It's
this.
good.
It's beautiful.
Very-
Gretchen, what about you?
Well, as far as animation goes, I've been watching Bravest Warriors every once in a while. The
Nice.
cutest animation. I love it.
Kenny was saying that comes back real soon, doesn't it?
I think so.
Okay.
And has the cutest voice actor in the world if you've never seen
Catbug.
it. Catbug. I think he's 8 years old, maybe 7. But seriously, the cutest thing ever. Like, watch it just for him.
Yeah, I've only seen a little bit of Bravest Warriors, and what I saw of it was good. I just have never put the time
It's kind
into
of
it.
out there, though. It's just like Adventure Time because it's the same guy.
Yeah. I'm not a big Adventure Time fan personally, but I can see why people like it. It's just a little too out there for me sometimes. Aaron, how about yourself?
Well, recently I've been watching Korra, obviously, but aside from that, my friend Mark, who has probably been on this podcast before.
Only a few times.
He's been trying to get a whole bunch of us into One Piece because as of now, I think there are only 3 other people besides he who watches it. At least watches it with any kind of dedication, and it was all right. I don't really want to get into the 600 episodes of time that would require since the only other show I can think of that I even kind of watched that much was the Pokemon show, and I never watched all 700 and whatever the hell they're up to now.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I have not seen all of the anime of One Piece. I've seen certain episodes, but I've read the entire manga, which is basically like the comic book, version of it. And you can go through that a hell of a lot faster than you can through the anime. So if you want to catch up fast, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I'm not really that interested personally, but
Yeah.
I'm also really excited because tomorrow actually. I'm getting a couple things from home sent to me here, and one of them is my entire collection of the original Speed Racer series.
Oh.
That and the Pokemon anime and maybe a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Are the only things I actually watched as a child in terms of anime, and I'm really excited to get that back because it's historically important. It was the first anime over here. So
Was it before Astro Boy?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. When was Astro Boy?
Well, Astro Boy might have been the first, one of the first animations, but I'm not sure if it came over, here.
Yeah, because Speed Racer was big in the 60s. So
Okay. Yeah, see, I've never actually, I've seen clips of Speed Racer, but I've never actually watched the show.
Well, it's a personal favorite of mine. But is there anything else? They took SpongeBob off Netflix, which made me sad
Oh, that's right.
They also
You-
took South Park.
because I wanted to watch that the other day because I couldn't watch any of the movies I wanted to show my girlfriend, and I was like, "Well, I'm upset. Let's watch SpongeBob." We open
That's
up
a good plan.
Netflix, and SpongeBob's not there.
And
My
you were-
day was ruined.
And you were just more
I
upset.
was so
Ruined by
sad.
Apple and iOS.
It's just got even worse. And just
Aw.
I started eating my MacBook as compensation.
Well, and the internet went down yesterday for you guys. I know
iOS
you.
7.
That was fun. Thanks, Apple.
7 hours.
All right. And what about you, Ashley?
Basically nothing. I've been trying to get settled in and stuff like that, so I really haven't had time to watch.
Did you watch anything interesting over the summer?
No, not really.
All right. Well, that's okay. We forgive you because
sorry.
you're caught up on Korra. That's what's important for today's discussion. So before we get into our discussion of season 2 of Korra, I thought it was appropriate for us to talk a bit about season 1, since we have some people. We have people who were on the podcast that we did on those when we did months ago, as well as people who haven't been on. And I know, at least for myself, even though the opinions I stated on those podcasts, over a year ago now, some of my thoughts on the show have changed since then. As I've rewatched, I now own the whole the season on Blu-ray, which it looks really good on Blu-ray. But anyways, so just quick discussion on everyone's thoughts on book 1 as a whole. Real quick, Aaron and Ashley, what were your exposures to the original show, Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Do you want to go first? Because I don't remember.
Okay. I can go first, I guess. Well, I was around the same age as Aang when Avatar started, so it was on Nickelodeon. I was around the age, and so it was kind of
Fortuitous.
yes.
Nice. And did you watch any of it, Aaron?
I watched. It was one of my favorite shows to like catch on Nickelodeon spontaneously. But I remember when I found out it was on Netflix, I'm like, oh my god, I have to go through and watch all of this in sequence now. And I watched all of it on Netflix and loved every minute of it. So whenever they added it, they've since taken it off. But whenever they added it was probably when I started watching it like all the way through. Which coincidentally, I don't think was too long before Korra came out.
Yeah, well, Korra started in like, what was it? Like early 2012.
Yeah.
So it's been a year and like a half or so since it premiered.
Yeah, but that's when I watched through all of Avatar. But I liked it. I liked it when I was younger. All the same.
All right. Well, at least for me, my sort of feelings on book one, I've really enjoyed it. Like the only things that have stuck with me as far as like criticisms I have of it are that I hate Mako, or I hated Mako in the first season.
Everybody does.
Because his relationship with Korra had very little development, and he was just kind of a bland, everything good happens to him sort of character throughout most
everything.
of it.
Except his parents being murdered. In front
Well,
of
yeah,
him.
but
Yeah.
think about it. He gets Asami and Korra both going after him.
I mean, I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say, I was going to agree with you. I'm like, think about that. You have to pick between the world superhero or the richest girl in the world, and they both want you. Your problems do not concern me.
I don't know.
Like-
I actually didn't mind him as a character. There wasn't any. Well, honestly, the only character I didn't like from the first season was probably Korra. Like she was the only one who I thought was kind of eh. Everybody
Yeah.
else I thought was actually pretty good. I mean, Mako was less developed than say Bolin or any of the
Yeah,
other characters, but
Bolin is the best.
Bolin is the best.
Literally the best. And then the other thing that I still sort of have a problem with, but as I've rewatched it more, I sort of see what the creators were doing with it is the ending. Because it is a bit of a Deus Ex Machina, with her getting airbending, and then all of a sudden, she gets all of her elements back, and Avatar state, and energy bending, all at once because magic.
I was going to point out, because I was thinking, because halfway through the end of last season, it was like, she only has airbending. And I wanted the next season to be like her trying to accept that she's the Avatar with just airbending, and then she doesn't have the other three, and she can't access them, and she can only get them in the Avatar states, because that would make sense. But
no,
Yeah.
the whole thing behind that was more. It was sort of like because Tenzin in the beginning of the season said, "You'll just all of these meditations and all of these practices you're going to do. These will eventually one day just click." And that was the moment where it just clicked for her. For whatever reason, it just suddenly clicked, and she got the basic concepts of airbending. Because if you watch it again, it's not like she's doing like these ridiculously like complicated things that Tenzin can do, but she is doing basic like I can throw you against a wall and I can throw you out a window stuff, which I assume is probably pretty basic on the whole tier of airbender skills.
Yeah, it's explained, like, if you think about it pretty well, because basically she'd lost, three of her elements, the three that she could bend when Amon, bloodbended her. And then as Mako's about to be bloodbended, she just, like, wants to fight back so bad that I guess the desperation of that moment just basically unlocked it for her. So that's okay. The whole thing with her getting her powers from Aang, I've read a theory online that I'm not sure if I believe, but it is very interesting because how she goes to that cliffside and there's a shot of like her crying and the single tear falls down the ledge and like shows it like going over the ledge. And so a lot of people interpret that to mean that like she's basically standing like on the edge of this cliff and is thinking about committing suicide in that scene. And that's why Aang says, when we're at our lowest point, we are open to the most change, to like restart the Avatar cycle and all this stuff. I personally don't buy into that theory just because I don't think, based on how Korra's character had been built up to be, she's the type that would turn to suicide that
That's
quickly.
like pretty deep for a show like this. I
Yeah.
feel like.
So I don't. Well, to be fair, they did show, the two villains going out.
They
in
did.
it.
Yeah,
They
they-
already had a suicide.
yeah, they
slash
did do a
homicide
suicide.
Yeah.
in the show.
So I personally don't quite buy that. So yeah, the ending is. It works, not as well as it could have, but it still works. I would have liked to see, like you were saying, Andrew, even though at the time when they were making book one, they didn't know they had a season two, so they made it so conclusive because they thought they only had a season to work with. If they had shown her somehow earn that, getting the energy bending and all of her elements back, she had to earn it, but instead it was just sort of given to her. That's the big problem, I guess, I have with it. Andrew, what are your thoughts on book one?
I like a lot of the things that you said. I liked I like her as a character. Like, I understand people's complaints with her, but my thing of her is I think they wanted to establish that she's the clear opposite of Aang. Like, when she goes to fight Tarlok, when like she breaks into his office, like she's like almost like pretty much a step away from just like an assassin, like ready to assassinate him at that point. She's just angry. Like Aang, because the big ending of the first Last Airbender was his struggle with not wanting to kill Ozai. But she's like the kind of person that would have no qualms with that if, somebody was bad enough. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's not just going to go around like killing everybody, but she,
if the job had to be done.
Yes, it had to be done. And I liked Amon as a villain.
Oh, yeah. Amon was great.
I was kind of disappointed that he turned out to be just another evil villain, because in the beginning, all the things that he says, you start to agree with, and you start to see his point. Because there really is an inequality between the people who have bending and the people who don't have bending. And they use the whole, like, criminal underground, like, early couple episodes thing to prove that they are
being oppressed.
Yes, mm-hmm. And I liked him as a villain.
That's actually something I thought of, but you know how at the very beginning of book 2 they show that little flash, and say that the Council of Five was disbanded and they elected a president. I wonder if the president that they elected was a non-bender, to sort of
I'd like
bring
to
peace.
I'd like to know about that too, but they didn't really go into that in this.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's forthcoming, hopefully.
If we go back to Republic City, I'm sure it will be a thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be.
Oh, they're going to bring that up again. There's no way they can not.
Yeah,
there's no way they can avoid saying, "Oh, by the way, there was a president," and we're moving away from that now.
Yeah,
they're going to come back to that at some point.
They'll come back.
So. Okay, Gretchen, what are your thoughts on season 1?
Well, I actually never watched Last Airbender. I watched it every once in a while when it was on TV, and then my friends got really into Korra, so I started watching that because they were getting super excited about it, and I loved the show. And I was a little bit confused at first since I didn't know much about Last Airbender.
Yeah,
I know a little bit.
So you didn't have any connection when they showed those flashes of Aang and stuff. You don't have.
Yeah, so I feel like I probably don't have as much of a connection to some characters as people who had watched Last Airbender, but I feel like you can still really enjoy the show, and I'm definitely gonna go back and watch that.
Yeah, it's definitely worth rewatching. One of the best American animated shows ever, for sure. Aaron, what were your thoughts on season 1?
I liked it almost almost entirely. There were a few things that kind of bothered me, especially the weird tank things that Mr. Sato had made.
You didn't like those?
Those really kind of bothered me because with one major exception, which I'll talk about in a second, they'd basically followed the evolution of technology pretty closely. And then suddenly mech tanks made out of solid platinum. I was just kind of like, okay, hold on a second.
Well, you weren't here when Jeremy was on the podcast, but from episode 1, he was mad that they didn't have guns or gunpowder at that point.
See, that was actually my other thing. That was the major exception that they've skipped out on. And it's not... I totally understand why it's not there.
Yeah, it's a kid's show.
And at the same point in the back of my head, I keep thinking, Amon's job would have been so much easier had somebody along the line said gunpowder, because just the whole concept of internal combustion without the discovery of gunpowder kind of baffles me a little bit. Because if you don't discover gunpowder, you don't have a lot of the things that lead up to internal combustion and a lot of the other technologies they already have. So I'm kind of curious if there's some explanation as to how they got around that, or if they're not going to bother because no kid's going to how did they get away with not using guns at some point?
Yeah, I think that's just one of the conceits of the show.
Yeah, and honestly, it doesn't bother me a whole lot because at the same point, you do see allusions to it, like for example, the United Forces battleships, where the firebenders and the other different types of benders had those cannons that sort of let them fire their elements into it, and it actually accelerates them because they're compressed into a smaller area, so it fires faster. At least I assume that's the logic behind it. So I actually liked that a lot. And I did really like the planes. The planes were probably one of my favorite thing about it because it was such a big reveal. What the heck are those things? They're flying, but they're flying really fast, and they're small. And I'm like, okay, so Mr. Sato is not only Henry Ford and... what's his name, Mercedes, he's also the Wright brothers.
Yeah, pretty much.
This man is amazing. Did he actually die at the end of season 1?
He didn't die. He was arrested.
That's right. He's got to come back at some point because at this point he's almost a madman.
Yeah, well, that would be actually cool to see like
Because-
Asami confront her father while he's in jail or something.
Yeah.
And there was one thing I thought season 1 was sorely missing, and that was Zuko in any of the flashbacks. It was because Zuko was my second favorite character from the Last Airbender, so I was really kind of sad that he wasn't in it at all.
Yeah, I was sad about that too, but I will say in the in one of the trailers for book 2, they showed her Korra talking to some old firebending looking woman. So I hope that means she goes to the Fire Nation at some point. Maybe they'll tie Zuko into that because supposedly he's still alive.
No, he is still alive. They've confirmed that. So I really want to see Zuko as he is now, but I also really want to see what he was like as an adult. Because if you read some of the comics and things like that sort of bridge the gap a little bit, Zuko actually was a really kind of awkward leader at first because he didn't really know what he was doing. And his first like major decision almost ends up in a second war with the Earth Kingdom. But he ends up being right. So I really want to see how all of those things that lead up to Zuko being Fire Lord affect Zuko as a Fire Lord.
Yeah. Well, I read The Search, and then I've been reading The Promise, and I can't wait for the third book to come out because that's going to finally answer what happened to Zuko's mom. You know,
Yeah.
the big secret.
Yeah, after they went on that field trip with Azula where she just goes berserk every 5 minutes.
Pretty much. Because she's Azula, and she's crazy.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see what happened to the other girls too, Azula, Mai, and Ty Lee.
Yeah, well,
because you get a little bit of closure at the end of Avatar, but that's only for the immediate future. You don't really see a whole lot of them afterwards in the books, the comics. So, and since Zuko didn't end up with Mai, I'm also curious to know who he did
wait,
end up with.
who says he didn't end up with Mai? He's with her in The Search and stuff.
Is he?
Yeah.
I thought he was with. I thought they separated at the end of the series.
No, they go through like a fight in one of the comics, but they get back together by the end.
Oh, okay, maybe it is Mai, but I don't. Is that confirmed or not?
I'm pretty sure. I don't remember hearing that she was not with Zuko.
Okay. Well, one way or the other, I'd like to see how that relationship has evolved, or if it isn't that relationship, what relationship is there
I
in
guess
its
we'll
stead?
find out. Ashley, what were your thoughts on Korra season 1?
I really enjoyed it. I thought, besides the fact that I was kind of bothered by them only having the one villain being killed at the end, whereas in Avatar, they had a villain for all the books together. I was kind of bothered by that, but I understand the fact they didn't know they were getting book 2. But on the other hand, I did like that there were more characters incorporated. You know, you got Tenzin in it, you just didn't have the 3 of them. Well, then eventually Toph and Avatar, but I just enjoyed it felt a little bit more dynamic in terms of interactions between people. Like they weren't just traveling on roads and meeting random strangers. They were in a city and it was like...
It was more focused.
Yeah.
Well, the first show was much more of an anthology show as opposed to this show, which is much less. As in, you could just drop in on one episode of Avatar and be like, oh, hey, this looks interesting, I'll watch it through. And you could watch it all the way through and you wouldn't be confused because you weren't missing too many plot details. Until they get to book 3, which is kind of more important that you watch it kind of back to back. But at least Korra is much more storyline oriented.
Yeah. Well, and I think, once again, like you were saying, Andrew, how they made Korra very much the opposite of Aang. They did that purposefully with the structure of Korra because they already made an episodic show with Avatar. They wanted to be in one location rather than a bunch of different places, which it seems like they're changing up a bit in book 2 because it looks like they're going to go to the Spirit World, the different water tribes, Republic City, the Fire Nation. They're going to more places, I think.
Yeah, they said roughly half of it was going to be Republic City and roughly half of it, and other locations, and roughly half was going to be the Spirit World. And once we get into the Spirit World, that will be just trippy as all get out.
Yeah.
I so want to meet up with Ko again.
Is that the face eater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
That was creepy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was awesome.
Well, isn't there some spiel about the first Avatar fighting him?
Well, the first Avatar is going to show up. We don't know if he's going to fight Ko specifically.
Yeah. Because I remember in the Last Airbender there was some like
Though one of the waterbending avatars got his wife's face stolen by Ko.
Yeah, that's
that was
right.
the thing.
I'm curious to see if that will come back because now that there's another waterbending avatar, I'm curious to see if he comes back and he's like, well, isn't this interesting? Another waterbender. I haven't seen one of you in a while, or something like that.
That would be cool.
I think it'll be really interesting to see.
Okay. Cool. Well, it seems like we've summarized our thoughts on book 1. So now we can get into book 2, which just debuted with a 2-episode premiere last Friday. And the 3rd episode comes out tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So we can look forward to that. Yeah, and immediately, we kind of get that cool little, what do you want to call it? The like news style recap, like they did in book 1. Explaining the stuff about the president. I did think it was a little strange how, they say Boomy retired basically from the United Forces.
Yeah.
It's sort of like he led that big boat into Republic City to like save it. And it was like, hey, I'm going to retire and hang out with my brother. See you guys,
Well, he did look pretty old at the beginning of that because, I mean, he looked old when he came in because he is the older. I believe he is the oldest of the 3 siblings.
I don't know for a fact, but he looks older than Tenzin.
Tenzin's the baby, and I'm assuming Kaya is the middle child, but I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
But even if Boomy's like the middle child, he's still probably up there in age because Tenzin's got to be in his late 40s.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then we open up with, I'm trying to think, what did we open up with?
The race.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The air scooter race.
And then she cheated with her.
Cheated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, you can't use
Well-
avatars.
Yeah. Well, it sort of fits her personality because she's
It
the
does. I liked
always
it.
got to win sort of type.
It was cute.
Here's the thing that bothered me about the whole using the avatar state to win that little race. It took Aang like almost a year to get control of the avatar state. Like I vividly remember the episodes in book 2 where they have like an Earth general who's trying to like force the avatar state out of Aang, and he can't do it. Whereas Korra has apparently mastered it after using it a few times already, and she can now go in at will. And that's
Yeah,
sorta,
she just does it.
and I think again that shows the sort of the perpendicular nature of the two characters. Aang is very at one and peaceful, whereas Korra is just so kind of reckless that she's able to access these powers without really understanding them, as Tenzin points out a few minutes later.
Well, yeah, I mean, because don't they say it's like a really shallow form of it? It's not like the full.
Well, I don't know. We've seen
Avatar
her,
state?
do some pretty awesome bending, but I'm certain there's a depth that you can go into with the Avatar state that hasn't been explored in the show yet. Because I mean, we only saw Aang do it like he only did consciously in the season finale, where he actually had control over himself while he was in it. So we haven't really seen it used that much.
That produced some pretty amazing fight scene results.
Oh, of
Yes.
course it did. It was the finale.
You should
It
go
had
back
to
and
be
watch
awesome.
it. You should go back and watch
I
it.
definitely
Those
want
were
to.
really good fight scenes. Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Well,
gonna see if I can find it somewhere, and I'll send you a link.
yeah.
I had them on DVD in my
Or that
dorm.
works too.
There you
Yeah,
go.
too.
Well, I know there's actually a pretty good deal. You can get all 61 episodes on iTunes for like $50.
I think it's on Netflix right now.
Oh, it is?
At least it was.
Did it come back?
Oh, did
was-
they
It was
take it
offer.
off?
They took it
Yeah.
off.
They took it
Oh,
off recently.
Of
so.
course.
Yeah, they also
Right
took-
when I want to watch it.
Yeah, Netflix has just been crushing my dreams recently.
They really have, haven't
Apparently.
they?
They didn't have
First
any of
it's
the action. They
SpongeBob.
didn't have any of the war movies I wanted to watch with my girlfriend. They didn't have Babylon 5 anymore, and now they
I
don't
know.
have SpongeBob.
I was really
and my
upset
life
when they
is
lost.
just-
She wanted to
When
watch
they-
war movies.
I want to show Brittany Saving Private Ryan because that's.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Excellent
best
movie.
movies ever.
But
That's
back
true.
on- back.
Back on track.
But anyway,
yes.
back on track. Because I was trying to think about all the things. Because like Mako basically became Nightwing.
Yes.
That's what I just keep saying. Because like Nightwing in the comics for a while was just a cop that also drove a motorcycle and did flips and stuff. So the opening where he's just driving the motorcycle and using his firebending to like stop it. I'm like, you're just Nightwing now, but
And his super cheesy lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually I really liked.
I actually,
I did too.
really
I actually
liked the
kind of like,
cheesy
yeah,
lines.
when he was going over those with Korra, and he's like, when you go to jail, tell him Mako sent you. That actually brought
Yeah.
like an aspect of like fun to his character
Yeah.
that I think was a bit missing in
Well,
book 1.
I kind of thought like the whole CSM Miami thing with like the taking off of the glasses and just saying the super cheesiest line.
Pretty much.
Well, see, I'm liking what they've done with Mako so far in terms of character development
Yeah.
because it seems like he's getting more of what he deserved last season.
Yeah.
Korra, on the other hand, I have other
Well,
thoughts
we'll
about.
get to Korra because
Well-
she's going to be a contentious.
well, it's funny because
Thing.
I had the opposite thought with Mako.
Really?
Because for most of the episode, there's the intro where he's Nightwing, and then there's the him and Korra get into a fight on the boat ride, and then after that, he says nothing of consequence the entire next hour. of that show. Like, she asked his opinion. Well, what do you think I should do? I don't know.
And
I think you should do what you want.
But I think he's justifying that because remember
Yeah.
on the boat, he said something about like her father, like, oh, he's only looking out for you or something like that, and she chewed his head off.
I know I know.
See,
I know, but like he should stick to his guns and just like, okay, I'm going to like state my opinion because that makes me a character, not like background noise.
Well, you see, at the same point, I've also been in that position where I don't know what like I should say to a girlfriend, and I'm just kind of like, you should do what you want because it'll
And she's
it'll
also
make you
the
feel
avatar.
better.
Yeah.
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 And when your avatar's the girlfriend, I feel like it adds a different kind of power aspect to that whole relationship,
So
and that's getting a little bit into the psychology of things. But
do you think they're gonna break up?
do
real
I think
question.
so? I don't think it's going to happen in
No.
this season, to say the least. Well, I don't know. It honestly,
It certainly could.
with the way they ended the two-parter, it honestly just depends on what
Because-
happens next.
Because he's so, like just trying to please her because she yelled at him, and then he's just like has nothing to say of consequence.
Well, the reason I think he has nothing to say of consequence is like versus what you're talking about on the boat. He really didn't know much about Korra's dad at the time. So it's just like, oh, well, your dad's probably looking out for you. Then later on we get, oh, wait, your dad hid all this info from you and committed this crime up in the north. That complicates the issue quite a bit. And he doesn't understand a lot of this Water Nation politics or the spirit world stuff that Unalaq is going on about. So I understand, like, he doesn't really have the expertise to give her legit advice. So he just basically says,
he
I'm going to
does.
support you.
He's quite literally out of his element.
He is.
But
Playing the role of Kenny tonight.
yeah, really
There
doing
you go.
Kenny's plays. So I don't know. It was interesting with Korra, like you mentioned, Aaron, because I on the one hand I sympathize with her a lot because she is being put in this kind of crappy situation, and I understand why she's mad at her dad and Tenzin, because she should learn spirit world stuff. She is the bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world. So I understand why she wants to do that, especially since it's becoming an obvious threat to them. But at the same time, she could have gone about it in a nicer way because she was kind of a bitch in this episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But,
Let's be frank.
but honestly, we've seen how she's reacted to things like this in the past. Like through all of season 1, whenever Tenzin was like, "You should listen to me," what did she do?
She rebelled.
In 30
There's also
seconds.
the fact that she's like 17,
Yeah,
right?
she-
And
yeah,
people are
she's
trying to
like
tell her what to
17.
do, and she's like, "No, I want to do it this way."
She's a much less impressionable, angsty teenager, especially when you compare
Yeah.
it to how Aang acted when he was a preteen or he was what 12.
Yeah, he was 12.
Yeah, but I think one of the big differences is like, we were comparing Aang to Korra earlier. Let's be honest, Aang was almost perfect. Like he very rarely made mistakes, like because he was, so at peace with himself and he was wise, since he would live with the monks and all that. So I think it's kind of good to see a more flawed hero in Korra. And the fact that at this point she has become like, she's not a fully fledged avatar because she still needs to learn airbending more and learn more about the spirit world, but she has all 4 elements. She can do the avatar state. So at that point I feel like the avatar really needs to start making their own decisions and start becoming, fulfilling the role of being the balance in the world. So she needs to start sort of choosing which path she wants to go and do for herself. Like Aang, throughout most of the original show, he didn't have any adults over his shoulder telling him what to do. It was just the kids going off doing the elements in order.
Yeah, well, he did have points like to guide him though. He at least knew what his overall goal should be, especially once you get to book 2 and they find out about the comet.
Right, but with the difference I think with that to Korra is that in the original series there was an overarching goal: beat the Fire Lord before the comet comes. That was the big thing. Like Ashley was saying earlier, right now there is no overarching goal with Korra as a show. It's just right now the immediate threat is take care of the spirits before they destroy the Southern Water Tribe. It seems like.
Yeah, and now the threat has changed entirely.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
At least temporarily. Personally, I think like she obviously did something good by closing that portal or whatever, but I can't believe that all of a sudden all the spirit world stuff is just gonna be A-okay.
Obviously it isn't based on the promotional material we've seen. So
Exactly.
I mean, that can't be the entire problem. And I think that the way they ended the episode is going to have something to do with that. Like, I think is it Unalaq the northern?
I think
Northern Water Tribe?
that's how you pronounce it, right?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember if that was his or her father or
That's the uncle.
Chief. Okay, because I in the back of my head, as soon as I saw those like soldiers coming to the
I know what you're
the
going to
southern,
say.
No.
the Southern Water Tribe, immediately I'm like, okay, you didn't really care about the spirits that much. You may have a little bit, but really this was political and getting back at your brother. And I'm just, I was sitting there thinking, like, are we really going to have Water Tribe brothers be the bad guys again?
Yeah, well, it does seem like Water Tribers are being the bad guys for 2 seasons in a row.
Yeah, and I know that's probably going to change, but at the same point, I'm just sort of like, what happened to the Water Tribes that have become so, like, either A, dictatorial, or B, lackluster and whimsical?
With Amon, it was basically just because it was one person. It wasn't like a society thing because their dad was a dick.
Yeah,
you know?
well, their dad was the mafia lord of Republic City. I understand that, but at the same point, I have to wonder: is there something like deeper embedded as a problem within the Water Tribes now?
Jeremy has pointed out to me a couple times that the Water Tribe just in general doesn't make much sense because they're literally on opposite sides of the world, like the 2 outposts for their nations. So like communication and everything must be really difficult in a world without cell phones and all that. So it doesn't really make much logical sense.
Well, I think that's just one of those things that doesn't have to make sense.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it doesn't have to make sense, but I am saying that it makes sense to me that there would be kind of a disconnect between the North and the South because they don't interact all the time.
I agree, and that's evident in their cultures now. Because as we see in these episodes, the North is obviously still very much in touch with its past, whereas the South has much more moved on. There are carnivals and fairs now that have replaced the sort of spiritual sanctity, and there's also a lot more technology. Whereas in the North, it looked like a lot of the technology hadn't really been implemented as much, at least not in the historical city. It's sort of like if you'd have gone to Rome. If you go to Rome, you still have the Colosseum. You still have a lot of the great wonders that was Rome in its heyday, but you also have the modern civilization embedded.
Although what we saw of the North in that flashback, that was years ago when the 2 brothers were still kind of young.
True.
We haven't seen modern day North yet.
And that was, I think, did he say 20 years ago or something like that?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, so I assume it's gotten bigger, but I don't know how much bigger it would have gotten, because you see, aside from the fortress that was all it was in Avatar Aang's day, it's now grown to be much more of a city outwardly, but you don't really see a whole lot of flair that the South has. Which, granted, the South was during a festival.
And to be fair, the flashback was to show the dad's story, not really to show us how the North had changed over the years. We didn't really get a good picture of what the city was like in general.
Yeah.
One thing that I did find interesting, you brought up Unalaq earlier. I actually liked, because it was kind of obvious from the first time he showed up, and he's sort of, there's that obvious animosity between Korra's dad and him, that he's probably a bad guy, but he does a lot of good things, in that he's the only one who understands this spirit bending stuff, and he saves the South from that spirit monster and, is trying to put Korra on this path that seems to be the right thing to do, to settle down the spirits and to bring balance, to the South and everything. And then he gets the evil smirk at the end of, the episode with the ships coming in, and it's like, oh, of course you're evil.
Well, and to that point, I didn't want to talk about his motivation and who he is, right? So, for starters, how does he know? He seems he seems very similar to Amon right now.
Well, I thought of him more similar to Tarlok, honestly.
Well,
because if you think about it, he and Tarlok's goals weren't all that different. They were to sort of
seize power.
Well, not even seize power, but Tarlok's was simply to seize power. Unalaq's is more to quote unquote change the culture and spirituality of the South
and seize power.
Yeah,
seize power. Well, see, it's funny because
he's veiled it under a much more transparent
thing. Reason,
layer of innocence, rather.
But he knows this spirit bending thing, kind of like Amon did, and he's all making these, well done points like Amon did, and I'm like, okay, fine. So you're obviously evil. Please, God, don't be evil like Amon was. Don't be just blatantly evil. Be half evil, have evil things going on. And
I think it will be interesting to see what his past is, because when we saw that flash of him with, when Korra's dad was still up there and stuff, he obviously looked younger, but he also didn't look like evil. Like when, the brother got banished, he didn't have an evil smirk on his face. He sort of looked kind of sad, Mm-hmm. So I feel like something happened in between him then and him being, becoming the leader of the North. Something.
And I have a theory on that.
Oh, let's hear it.
And I kind of told you this.
Okay.
When we were talking about it earlier. So his brother, what's
Unalaq?
Korra's dad? Yeah, Unalaq's brother. What's Korra's dad's name?
Just Korra's dad. I don't know.
Korra's dad
I don't remember either.
angers the spirits,
Right.
right? And he is banished because he angers the spirits. And he goes to live in the Southern Water Tribe. And Unalaq is the most spiritual person that he basically knows because he's basically the Pope or something.
He's
Kinda.
basically
Something.
the Pope.
The Water Nation Pope.
Yes. And then his basically heathen heretical brother is the father of the Avatar. Do you? I think that there's like some jealousy, and can you imagine that? Like you were the most devout worshiper of these spirits, and your brother is basically a very small step away from heathen, and he gives birth to like their Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
I don't think it's. Pardon my use of the term, but I don't think it's quite as Christian as that necessarily.
I'm not saying it's as Christian.
Well, because the spirits aren't necessarily their gods as much as they are like sort of their companions, and not in the sense that they walk around in the park. Yeah, they sort of coexist together. And it's much more based on Asian religions than it is on Western religions, to be sure. But I think I think the birth thing you brought up is interesting. But what's even more interesting to me is how did he get to be chief of the Southern Water Tribe after being banished from the North? Didn't anyone look at that and go,
Look at your resume.
"You got banished from our brother country. Why are we making you the chief?" Because there's no necessarily a bloodline connection to it or anything like that. At least not that we're aware of.
If you recall, though, he was the two brothers, Korra's dad and Unalaq, were the sons of the chieftain of the North.
Yeah.
You know, so I think number one, he's the son of the chieftain of the North, so he's got a blood thing going for him. Number two, he was shown to be a very competent warrior and leader in his own right. And number three, I think the people in the South don't care as much about, oh, you made a mistake up in the North to the spirits. We don't care as much about the spirits, and that's way up north, so it doesn't really affect us. So I think those are probably all reasons.
See, I agree with the first 2 points, but on the third one, it seemed to be implied that he was one of the reasons they started to pull away from the spirits more. At least that's what Unalaq implies.
It sounded to me like it was as a direct result of the 100-Year War, because they said, we were able to help them physically, rebuild themselves after the war, but we failed spiritually, and they went down this path of decadence over the 70 years.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it's maybe it's both.
Yeah.
Maybe the impressions of the lack of spirituality were there. They just weren't really realized until Korra's father.
I'm not sure
there.
if her dad accelerated them, but he certainly didn't stop them in any way. Because he's obviously not that big into this whole spirit world thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what I was going to bring up a minute ago. I forgot. Oh, well. One thing I did really love in this episode, or these episodes, I guess I should say, we've got some great new characters. One of my favorites is the Howard Hughes-esque entrepreneur guy.
Oh, I loved him. He was my favorite.
He was hilarious. All of his lines were great.
And the twins.
Yeah.
Yes.
The twins
I
are
loved
so
them,
creepy.
actually.
I loved the business guy, though. I don't remember his name offhand, but actually there's a fun fact. You know how he invents the moving picture, right?
Right.
And the first thing he's like, hey, check this out. And then he shows the ostrich running.
I know what you're going to say, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an allusion to the first moving image that was invented in our world, which was it was actually a bet, basically by a couple of rich people. They got a photographer to photograph a horse with a whole bunch of cameras, and as a result of that, you could tell whether a horse's foot touched the ground when it was galloping or not. And that's an illusion that's very much alluded to by this ostrich running, which I think is really cool. Being
Yeah, I really like that.
video
part.
geek.
I noticed that too, actually, as a film buff.
Yeah.
So I loved him, and of course, Assam. I didn't quite understand why Asami brought Bolin of all people, because she could have gotten anyone else to be her assistant.
Bosami.
But of course,
I'll be Clara.
he immediately hits it off with the entrepreneur guy, immediately, pointing out that he's not levitating or whatever, and everyone's like, oh,
Yeah.
how dare
like
you?
that.
But I loved the entrepreneur guy and how he just did that creepy stare off with Asami and was like, all right, you're hired. We're gonna do this deal.
Oh, he's completely
He was
insane.
hilarious.
He's
Yeah.
completely insane. And I think I'm curious. I'd like to see some more of him. Frankly, because we obviously will. But I'm very curious to see how he got to this position.
Yeah. Well, if I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he might be involved with some sort of like black markety stuff too, because I think I remember reading something about that in his character description before the season came out. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I mean, it's entirely possible. Given how much money he has, it's entirely possible that he made that being the front for some kind of underground business. And then sort of spoiled the funds that he got from this is all purely theoretical, but say he's the front man for the black market and he gets all this money from being that front man, and he just decides, hey, I'm going to make moving pictures because that sounds fun. And that's how he ends up doing it.
I just remembered. I loved it when the really hot woman came out and started like dancing, and Bolin's just like so sad when she's gone.
Yeah.
Bolin in general in this episode was really great.
He's so goofy. He's such a
Maybe
great
it's just
character.
me, but I think they've made him much more Sokka-esque in terms of like attitude. Because I actually saw a comic recently on the internet that was oh God, what's the police chief's name?
Beifong. Lin Beifong.
Lin Beifong. It was her coming in, and she's like, we can't find the Avatar. We don't know where she is. And then Asami goes, well, how do you lose the Avatar? And Bolin's like, by forgetting her entirely and moving on. And he's got this really sad look on his face, and I was just like, oh.
That is something Bolin would say.
Yeah.
You brought up Lin real quick. That's actually something I remember reading about, is that she's not going to be in book 2 very much, unfortunately, because she's one of my favorite characters. But apparently she's featured much more prominently in books 3 and 4. So
Jesus, they've already got 3 and 4 written?
I don't know if they've got it written, but
if they've got it outlined.
I guess. I mean, they're probably working on book 3 at this point, because I'm pretty sure they're just going at them now that they have all 4 seasons confirmed,
Interesting.
Yeah. But Gretchen, earlier you brought up the twins, Eska and I forget the boy
they start
twins'
with a
name.
D.
It's
Des-
Esda?
Deska, something like that.
Desna.
Desna. Okay,
Desna.
something like
I just
that.
keep calling them the twins because they
Something
look
really
the same.
similar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he said all of what, like 2 lines in the whole episode. The brother. So didn't really care much for him, but. I'm sort of divided on Eska because she had some great lines in the episode, but at the same time, I kind of want to see Bolin get with someone who's more like pleasant and nice versus this person who's very cold and unemotional.
I'll be totally
She
honest.
was like using him.
I'll be totally honest. I don't think Bolin's going to end up with anybody. I think he's
No.
just kind of going to be the guy who bounces around and is totally okay with that because he's having fun.
You compared him to Sokka. Sokka got more ladies in the original show than anyone else, pretty much.
True,
Sokka was
but
basically
at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens to Bolin too. If he's the sort of the hopeless romantic who flirts with everybody outrageously and doesn't really get denied so much as he gets like, "Oh, you're cute. Goodbye." Like that's what I expect most of the females in this show to give him.
Well, that's pretty much
in
what
terms of
Korra was
relationship.
like, because she like hung out with him and was like, oh, he's so much fun to hang out with. Oh, wait, Mako, he stares at me coldly. I must go to him. It's like, come on, Korra.
Yeah, I don't think anything's gonna happen with the twins and Bolin, but I just think it's a funny relationship because
It's just creepy. Like, if you were hypothetically speaking here, if
All
you
right.
were in a relationship with somebody whose sibling was always with them, would that not bother you?
and it's a boy,
Yes, it was.
but he
It's
doesn't.
Bolin.
Yeah,
You
well,
didn't even know which one was the guy at first.
I didn't either.
If Wes
I
had a
wouldn't
sister
like
who
me.
followed you guys everywhere you went, would that not bother you?
It'd be a little weird.
Yeah, that would
Yeah.
be kind of weird.
Well, I think they pointed that out in the episode because he's like, "Oh, Eska, do you want to come in the snowmobile?" And
Yeah,
she's
it's
like,
just
"Sure."
a
He's
river
like,
too.
"Oh, yeah." So who's gonna drive? And then you just see him like unhappily driving with the 2 in the car next to
Exactly.
him.
That
I think Mako even comes up to him and he says, "Not right now, Mako." I loved it.
Yeah, I actually, honestly, the relationship I'm most excited to see develop is not Mako and Korra. It's not Tenzin or anybody. It's actually Bolin and Mako. Because we had a little bit of like, we're still bros, right? Girls, man, in the first series.
I did
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
But that was kind of it. I am much more looking forward to seeing them being brothers, as brothers would be, annoying the hell out of each other.
One thing I did like a lot about, or one of the high points from Mako, at least for me in book 1, was the episode where, I think it's episode 3, where Bolin gets kidnapped, and Mako's going after him, and you do get that feeling that Mako's very much the protective older brother, who feels responsible for Bolin. I like that aspect of him, but I'd also like to see the more teasing aspect.
Yeah,
too.
and I think that sort of contributes to most of his attitude for most of the season, where he's kind of calm and kind of very, very much more reflective and sort of held back, whereas Bolin's kind of like, I'm here to have fun because my brother's protecting me, yay.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's like something they actively think about, but it's quite possibly a result of them living together on the streets for all their lives.
I will say I love Bolin in this episode. He had a ton of great lines. I will say I hope he's not just the comic relief character, because this episode it was pretty much all comic relief all the time, which was funny, but I hope they still bring some dramatic elements in. I hope he does get in relationship, and certain things happen to him, because I really felt bad for him in the beginning in Republic City, where he's with that crappy pro bending team. He gets his ass kicked, and it's like, oh, why can't Bolin just ever get a break? Whereas Mako gets with the Avatar.
Now he's super cop.
Yeah, Nightwing.
Almost detective.
Yeah, apparently within 6 months he's already risen up in the police force. So I love that. I loved one of my favorite Eska lines had to be the feeble little turtle duck line.
I will protect you, my feeble turtle duck.
Yeah. Or the am I your boyfriend or a slave? Yes.
Some prizes.
Yeah. Mike and Brian, the co-creators of the show, they obviously did a really good job writing this episode.
Yeah. Something else we should probably talk about is Tenzin's vacation.
Yes.
Vacation Tenzin.
And I honestly, one of the things I'm most excited about that is not just Boomy and Kaya picking on Tenzin the whole way.
I'm guessing you're going to say Janora.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to see more of that, because she is obviously the most in tune as far as that family is concerned with knowledge. As far as the 3 children are, she's the most serious. She's the most in tune with what's going on, and she's also the most knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. So I'm very curious to see what this relationship with the Avatar statue has, what comes of this.
Yeah.
Because obviously she's going to, at some point, according to the trailer, head into the spirit world with Korra.
Yeah, well, we saw that shot of her, it's a pan shot, and pans over Korra and Janora, and then when it goes over to Korra, they're in the spirit world, they transition into it or something.
I'm very interested to see more of
One of my
Janora.
favorite moments from these episodes was where Janora went and was looking at the statue of Aang, and it went up on that close-up of his face. It's middle-aged Aang, and it's it just makes you have the feels for the first season. Or especially when they were talking with Katara, and she said, you'll learn when you're my age, that the time you have with your siblings is very precious, and it's even worse when you realize Sokka's dead. Way to make me feel the feels.
I saw another comic, and it was Katara and Sokka when they were really, really young children, and it showed them panel to panel what they were doing in each stage of their life, how much they were annoying each other. And the last panel is Katara sitting there drinking tea by herself, and I was just like, "Ow!"
I think I saw that one actually.
I usually don't get affected by things like that, but ow, that hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm drowning in feels.
Pretty much. So I love that. I also thought it was interesting with Janora woke. Well, she was in the statue room, and then she looked over her shoulder and was this, creepy music, and then we didn't really see what that was. So is she sensing some sort of spiritual presence or something? I don't really know.
According to what I've seen, it's Aang.
Yeah, that's
just
what
being,
I heard.
Being doofy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, honestly, it was Aang just being doofy in the spirit room, trying to have fun with a child. He was. I've seen this. Once again, I've seen a comic. Can you tell I'm on Reddit a lot? I've seen a comic where it was. You see Janora what a cool statue. This is really interesting. And then the ghost of Aang runs up from behind her and makes weird faces at her and squeals as he runs away because he's just trying to make Janora have some fun.
Right. And one thing I didn't rewatch the episode. I should really look at it like at the frame. But you know when she goes to the statue of what I presume is Juan, you know, the first Avatar, and it like lights up when Korra like does the spirit world thing in the South Pole. It looked like he didn't have like any hands, like his arms were like cut off or something. I don't know if that's just the statue being like damaged or does he lose his arms or
I don't
something.
know. I'm curious to see where all that goes though.
Yeah.
Because we've heard the first Avatars coming into the show, so I'm curious to see how the history of the Avatars plays out.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that because in the trailers they show us a very different, like very Asian looking art style and it looks really pretty.
Yeah.
So I'm happy about that. Let's see, looking at my notes here. One thing that definitely stuck out, well, something that, you know, you're mentioning all these comics you saw. One thing I definitely saw people saying on Tumblr and other places online is at the very end of the episode, you know, people were quoting, everything changed when the Northern Water Tribe attacked. You know, it's very similar to...
I don't think it'll be quite as hostile as the Fire Nation was, but
let's hope not.
Yeah.
One thing that I definitely loved was, you know, we get that scene in the first episode where Korra is they're at the carnival, you know, and she's like playing the little water game thing, and she like gets pissed about something with the situation, like just shoots a jet of water and it wins her the little Appa stuffed toy. I love that just as a little comedic moment. And I love the way they've animated the spirits and like that whole fight scene in the first episode. Like it looked really pretty.
Yeah.
By the way, you actually brought up a question I have because I actually don't know the answer to this. Where did the other air bison and or flying lemurs come from? Because as far as we knew, there was only Appa and Momo left.
I remember reading that like Aang discovered like basically like a secret nest of, you know,
Yeah,
flying
I think
bison
that
and
was in
lemurs
the,
and stuff.
Information that Nickelodeon put up.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works as an explanation for me because as soon as I saw that the first season, I'm like, that's not Appa. Where'd they get another sky bison?
Yeah, what did you guys think? You know, we've talked about Korra a little bit and her attitude in these episodes, but I know a lot of people were really mad at her in the end of that first episode when she said, like, you know, this is where we part ways or whatever to Tenzin. And he's like, you know, it's been an honor serving you, Avatar Korra, you know, and they walk away and it's like, you know, the split up of the two, mentor and student, you know. Did that make you guys angry at Korra? Were you sympathizing with her?
I felt bad for Tenzin a little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of understand, though, because she is that, like, angsty teenager, and people are always trying to tell her what to do. I kind of understand. I feel like if I were in that position, I might be like her, too, but it was just kind of harsh, the way she said it.
Yeah. Well, I could sympathize her a little bit with how, like, she was, you know, I defended Mako earlier for, like, not choosing a side, but on the other hand, I can sympathize with her, too, because, like, occasionally, like, I'll say, okay, so what do you want to do for the podcast next week? And I'll list off, like, 20 different anime, and then everyone's just silent, like, whatever you want to do. So it's like, well, thanks, guys. That helps me make a decision, you know, just telling me to do whatever I want to do. So I can sympathize with her, but on the other hand, you know, I was kind of mad at her, you know, because she's kind of being a jerk in these episodes. One thing that did definitely bother me, because you know how Korra's dad goes with them, you know, to go do the spirit world thing. And then, like, what is it? They get attacked by a bunch of spirits. And then he's like, oh, we got to turn back, you know, and Korra's like, no, you got to turn back. And then it's like cut to commercial break. And the next time you see him, he's just like leaving. At least to me, it seems like he's the type of protective dad where, like, if he couldn't convince Korra and the rest to go with him to leave, then he would probably stick with them to protect her. Yeah. But instead, he's just like, nope, and just starts driving away. That was kind of I didn't understand what he was doing there.
I think at that point, he'd basically given up because he'd suggested they go back like 3 times by that point, and no one had listened to him. So I think at that point, he's just like, all right, fine. I guess I will do as you ask because you are the Avatar, but I don't like this at all.
Pretty much.
And he obviously doesn't make it all the way back before he'd go like, yes, she did it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he saw the lights in the sky, which was another very pretty little scene. I love that, you know, that we got that scene near the end of episode 2 with her going through like the crystallized forest or whatever it was, you know, and then her finding the, you know, orb there. It was like just the music was playing really nice there because there was no dialogue. And of course, as soon as Korra sees something, she's like, I must hit it. Hit it harder.
Oh my god, that annoyed me so much. I'm like, okay, I understand you're not in tune with the spirits, but really,
Just
really,
blast
you're
fire
gonna
at it,
punch the hell out of the freaking portal of the spirit world, and you think that's gonna solve it?
Yeah, well, I can understand her like going to that first because like, oh, fire will melt the ice. But when it didn't work, and she's just like, oh, just keep hitting
keeps
it
doing
harder.
it.
You know,
I'm sure that won't cause anything bad to happen.
yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then you got the cool fight scene with like the tentacly, spirit world creature. I saw somebody making a point. She uses a like airbending thing to get it off her, like standing on her head, like twisting her legs around, and that's the same move that Aang does in the opening to Korra, which I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Doing a more advanced airbending move. Mm-hmm. And it did make for some good tension, where she's like reaching, desperately for the thing as she's in the avatar state. And as soon as she touches it, of course it fixes things because I guess just being in the avatar state means spirit stuff works for you.
Yeah.
But as I was saying earlier, I can't believe that's like, they were sort of, it was a little unclear, at least to me in the writing, as far as like what that portal actually was, because it sort of sounded like, oh, well, we have to close this now or else things are going to get worse. And like now that it's closed, is everything solved, or is that the first step in a series of events to solve, the South's problems?
I feel like that part was a little bit short.
It was a little vague.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was, what's the uncle's name again? Orlok. I think that was like step one of his plan. Is like, okay, now they're kind of in tune with the spirits, and spirits aren't actively trying to murder. Now I'm going to bring in my northern water tribes, and we're going to culture them.
Right. And I did like at the end there, she comes out of that little forest thing having solved her problem, and then she like apologizes to Mako, basically saying I was being a jerk, and they hug it out, and it's like, okay, so I'm hoping that, maybe she was obviously sort of being arrogant and overconfident and all that in these first two episodes, but maybe, she's sort of come to, terms with that a little bit more at least, and she's not going to be as mean to Mako in these upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay with it right now. If this drags on for the whole season with her being like this, I'm gonna get kind of annoyed with her.
Yeah. We've got to see some better character development soon.
Yeah.
By the way, there's one thing I forgot to mention earlier. Did anyone else like notice and or focus on the fact that they killed an entire ship of people in like the first 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Like, did anyone remember?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It kind of slipped my mind as the rest of the events of the episode took place. But after I was done watching them, I'm like, wait, they killed like, it must have been at least 30 or 40 sailors on that thing.
But they only showed like 2 of them.
True, but at the same
it's
point,
like
that was a big cargo ship.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing as killing only 2 people in children's minds. So.
Yeah, I guess. But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm like, wow, that was
That's a lot of people.
that
That's
certainly
dark.
raised the level of intensity.
Yeah, it certainly did.
Certainly set the tone for the season.
Yeah. We haven't talked about it much, but I really loved, like, one of my, sometimes I think they struggle a little bit with, like, teenager characters because obviously, they get a little angsty sometimes, but I think they've been really good with writing because obviously Tenzin and Lin were, like, 2 of my favorite characters from the previous season. And I love the interactions between Tenzin and his 2 siblings, like the
Yeah.
vacation Tenzin,
I'd love to see Vacation, Jensen.
or how they just constantly, like, poke fun at him because he's so, stuck up and
Yeah.
proper.
So far, I've really liked Tenzin's siblings, especially because while Boomy he's a little out there, he's nothing like his namesake. Like,
He's not that crazy.
He's not just off the walls, insane, earthbending or anything like that. And I also like that he is a non-bender.
Yeah.
Because it sort of shows you that, it's not entirely genetic. There's
I want to see him fight. Like, what's the weapon he uses, or
or
whatever.
how he fights.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure I am sure we'll see it at some point. But because he's a non-bender, I assume he's probably going to be much less effective against spirits or anything else they end up fighting.
Well, that's what was interesting. I mean, it was kind of shown bending in general is pretty ineffective against the spirits.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that worked was that spirit world bending thing that Unalaq was doing, which I did want to talk about because there was in the second episode you saw Korra sort of start to do it where there was like water going around in circles around it and then it like fell apart. So does that mean like that this is like some other subset of water bending? Like we've got blood bending now. It's going to be part of the spirit bending thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of curious. This isn't a little unrelated, but what are some of the things that you guys are looking forward to seeing most develop this season? Because for me, it's definitely the political situation in terms of the world politics, because we see these things like the United Forces and Republic City, and that's sort of alluding to the fact that all of these countries have put down their sort of like, we're gonna cooperate peacefully now. But at the same time, I'm like, they're still sovereign countries. There has to be some more political stuff going on here. And I think the Northern Water Tribe not invading the South, but sending an army to the South is going to be the start of showing some of that, which I'm really looking forward to. So I was wondering what you guys were looking forward to.
At least for me, that would be cool to see, and I want to see like, Zuko and like some of the characters from the old show that we haven't seen yet. But what I'm most interested in is the secrets of the spirit world and the origins of the Avatar, because like, how in the world, did the spirits give Wan, because he seems like a normal person, how did they give him this ability, that makes him reincarnate, and have these magical powers? Like, that's like an event that shakes, the entire foundation of this world, and it'll be interesting to see when we get to that point in those flashback episodes, like, did bending even exist before the Avatar? We don't even know that, was that like the formation of bending as a whole?
Well, the history of the world is sort of clouded in a good bit of mystery. Like, we understand like how old some of these countries are. We understand that they have a lot of varying traditions, but we don't really understand the origins of these countries.
Right. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Andrew, how about you?
Things I'm looking forward to see, like you said, the political things. I really like the idea of like, because this is definitely, and they kind of got into the politics a little in the first book, so I agree that I kind of want to see more on that. And at the same time, I want to see each of the characters, like, because they're all in this like awkward teenage stage. I kind of want to see them come out of that with like a clear purpose, like, because most people go through that stage around that age where it's like, what do I want to do with my life? What do I like? Okay, so I like this, so do I want to do that forever? And stuff like that, like, when we pick a career. But Korra needs to like pick how she wants to be and how she has to like handle situations, and the other characters each need to pick like their own paths in life, like what's
right. Well, one thing I think, once again, going to the differences between the original show and this one, pretty much now for 3 seasons, unless Korra somehow loses or bending or something, we're gonna basically have what happens like after you become a fully fledged Avatar. You have all 4 elements, and you have the spirit, Avatar state stuff. I think it'll be interesting to see Korra develop into basically becoming the peacekeeper. She's got to go like mediate these disputes between nations, and for her to be able to do that, reasonably, she does sort of have to calm down from her hot-headed self. So I want to see that character evolution.
Yeah, that's what I want to see too. Just get more spiritual, and she's not so hot-headed like she is right now.
Especially since we've seen how Roku and Aang handled that. Albeit Roku was a lot less successful than Aang, but still.
What do you think, Ashley?
I'm looking forward to Janora's storyline.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really liked her in book 1, and so I was kind of happy that she was, getting her own little like subplot to the story. Like, it's not just about Korra's journey, but Janora's going to be involved as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me, I think one of my favorite overall moment from season 1 doesn't have anything to do with what my favorite parts of season 1 was. It was not Janora, the other girl. What's her name?
I forget.
I don't.
Is that,
Huh?
is it Iki or something?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
I think
But
sounds
Janora's
familiar.
little sister was walking down the hallway with Korra and Asami.
Oh,
And
I know what you're gonna say.
she just, for no reason whatsoever, says to Asami, "Did you know that Korra likes Mako?" And Korra gets the best look I have seen in a long time on an animated character's face.
Well, and
As,
the best
like,
is they have lightning bolts in the
like
background.
the sun is like behind her, and you hear this hellish scream, and it's just like, oh my god, I lost it at that.
That is one of
That
the
was
best
so
moments.
well done.
I'm also hoping they do some more stuff with Pema and Rohan. Is that the new baby's
Yeah.
name? Yeah. Maybe incorporate them just a little bit.
Maybe he'll be a horse penguin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking Lord of the Rings-ish there.
Yeah, no, I felt the same.
Well, I did say back when season 1 was on, like more than the love triangle between Asami, Korra, and Mako, I actually really like the love triangle between Lin, Tenzin, and Pema.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that expanded on more at some point. One thing that I was just reminded of, a little pet peeve of mine, I don't know if this bothered any of the rest of you, because in general I really liked the flashback of Korra's dad. But when he went into the forest, to fight like those guys who had attacked the city, and in the process he basically destroyed the forest. we didn't see them doing like any bending. They seemed like they were non-bending mercenaries. So, and there weren't that many of them. So how come he had to destroy the entire forest, like with this huge wave of water, to like capture these guys? Like it seems like it was a bit of overkill.
That's not true, actually. They did do firebending.
They were firebenders?
It certainly looked like it because they were wearing red, and I'm pretty sure you see a couple of them firebend.
Okay.
So my theory behind that was they were Fire Nation remnants who didn't want to stop like fighting, so they just sort of stuck it out and lived in the north, where maybe they got abandoned. I mean, we don't really have a lot of backstory. I don't think we really need a lot of backstory because they're referred to as barbarians, and barbarians generally means like people who aren't part of any other civilization. They're just sort of wandering.
One thing I liked that we saw a lot in Republic City was that it wasn't like, like in the original show, it was very much divided into the 4 nations, are their own thing, and you didn't see a lot of crossover. Whereas in Republic City, we saw, in the gang there were waterbenders, earthbenders, and firebenders. They're all sort of together. So I could definitely see there being like a mercenary band of non-benders, and benders of all 3 nations. Just sort of criminals all coalescing together.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. The triads probably are not restricted to Republic City. I would assume they get more specialized the farther you go into each country, because Republic City is sort of like the meeting place between all 3 of these countries. Which also brings to my mind, why isn't the United Forces sort of based there? Because they didn't have any like troops there or anything like that. They had to bring those in. So I'm curious to see, do the other countries still have militaries, or is it all the United Forces now?
It seemed like they were in the Fire Nation.
Well, the Republic City used to be
No, I
Fire
meant
Nation.
Yeah, I know. I meant like the army.
Since Iroh was the leader of that particular fleet.
Yes.
But then you had Boomy, he's not necessarily from the Fire Nation.
But and then that does beg the question: is there something else? Like where was that? Like were they just like sitting on the docks, like chilling, and like, oh wait, our capital city's under attack? Oh, that's a problem. We should get on that.
Well, I'm not sure if it's the capital. Well, I guess it's the capital of the United Federation of Nations, but I don't know. I was under the impression that was just like a small area, like within, like the Earth Kingdom, where all 4 nations sort of coalesce together. But maybe it is like the United Federation of Nations is now basically the entire world, like all 3 nations working together. And we don't really know.
Then I have a question: is why do they need an army if it's all 3 of them united together? Like, what does that army oppose?
Well, like
other than
basically, I could see it as like each of the 3 nations has their own like. Because we see the waterbenders, they still have troops and stuff, but they're more for local, like, personal matters. Whereas if there's any, bigger, like, conflict between nations or criminals, breaking out or whatever, that's, the UFN.
See, I think it's actually the other way around. I think the United Forces may or may not be just, like, a showcase. Because, honestly, it's... You hear about the 2 fleets, but you don't hear about anything else. And I figure for one of the biggest cities in the world being overthrown, they'd probably want to send a good portion of their resources to that. So I'm curious to see how big these United Forces actually are, because you see a fleet of them in this episode, but you don't really see what that fleet's doing. It's sort of just sitting there.
I don't know if that's the UFN. I think that's Northern Water Tribe ships. They look like the UFN ships, but that's probably just the typical ship design now, and the North just has some of them.
That's entirely possible, but we don't have a lot of clarity on that.
Well, we'll get that in this next episode.
Exactly, which is why I'm very curious to see where it goes, because I since we see this just fleet of Water Nation soldiers, I would assume that the 3 countries still have their own militaries, and the United Forces is sort of like what our United Nations is. It's just a peacekeeping force that exists outside of militaries.
But there's only 3 nations to keep... So if one of the nations decided to pull out and rebel against the other 2, then a whole, third of the UFN's forces is just tied up in that. So then their whole stance is then weakened by them pulling out. How do they get their troops out? It's just... For one of those nations to secede from this army that they have that they are conjoin it together would be like a nightmare. Yeah. And I don't know if that's supposed to be there to keep them in line, but does that really keep them in line? What's the purpose of that if they have nothing to oppose anymore?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I mean, you could beg the question of would those people, if the Earth Kingdom drew out, would all those Earth Kingdom soldiers in the UFN, would they go with their country, or would they be allied to their buddies in the UFN, at that point?
Yeah, I know. Which
I think all of the hypothetical stuff here is purely hypothetical at this point, because we just don't really know how the structure of all this is oriented. We don't really know if what did you call it? The United Federation of Nations?
Yeah,
Is that really what they called it?
that's what they called it.
I get so tired of people copying United Federation
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Like, really, Star Trek did not pick the only naming convention for an
Really
organization of nations. But anyways, the I think just that's why I'm so looking forward to getting some more clarity about the political side of all this, because they're bringing in all of these details and we're not really seeing the big picture. We're seeing there's a fleet that's coming in to help save the day. Well, that's good, but is this fleet unique to Republic City? Is this fleet part of the overall group? Is this fleet made up of the other nations' militaries? We don't really know, which is why my brain is just like, I need clarification. Give this to me.
Clarification. If Clara was here, this would be more funny.
The
Whenever we
Clara.
make any Clara something else joke, I have to bring it up.
Okay.
One little moment I want to bring up real quick before we wrap it up, because we forgot to talk about it, is when Tenzin and his siblings arrive on the island, and the air acolytes give Tenzin that weird like head shaver and Pema all those flowers, and then they completely ignore Kaya and Boomy, like not knowing who they are.
Well, no, they walk up and they're like, "Oh, are you airbenders too?" No. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, no, they thought they were servants.
Yeah.
Well, and they said, I didn't know Avatar Aang had more children or something like that.
And they're like, "No, we're not airbenders." Oh, well, then one of them makes come out. Yeah, we've been getting that our whole life.
That's actually an interesting thing, because there was a clip released on Nick.com. I saw it was either today or yesterday from the third episode, like just a 1 minute clip from a scene. Did any of you guys see it? Okay, basically the interesting thing about it was with Tenzin and all of them, on the Air Temple Island, and Tenzin was going on about, I'm having so much fun on these vacations. It reminds me of when we did it when we were kids. We used to go all the time, and then Boomy and Kaya are both like, whose memory are you thinking of? We never went on vacations. He was like, what? Oh, and he's listing off like all these times. And then they're basically like, no, like that was just you and Dad. Like you and Aang went on those trips. We didn't go. So it sounds like maybe like Tenzin's or Aang's favorite kid was Tenzin because he was an airbender, and like the other two are a little bit neglected by him. Like,
well,
that might be interesting.
It's totally
Logical.
it's totally rational that Aang would want to spend a lot of time with Tenzin, because if you think about it, Tenzin's got to carry on the airbender existence.
Have all those kids.
Yeah, I mean, Tenzin like has to basically restart I don't want to say it's a race, but a race.
Yeah,
like
nation.
Almost.
it's got to restart like a genetic something or other.
Right.
So, whatever you want to call it, it's all on Tenzin as of Aang's death.
Yeah, so this sounds like there might be a little bit of resentment between the Kaya and Boomy and Tenzin for him being like the last airbender, as it were.
Yeah. Well,
The only airbender of the kids, I should say,
yeah, I'm very curious to see how that relationship develops as well.
Yeah. So yeah, any final thoughts on these two episodes or on theories for episode 3? My personal feelings for these two episodes were like they were like they weren't perfect, because there were some things I was kind of mad at Korra about, with her like sort of regressing a little bit as a character, with her ego and stuff. But overall, I still sympathized with her with a lot of points, and she seems to be moving forward, as of the end. The animation was great throughout. Like I think some moments were even better than season 1, especially that fight with the Dark Spirit and stuff. And there were a lot of laughs. Just because I was just watching it like on Nickelodeon, like at 7 on Friday, I was like, I hadn't realized how much I missed the show until I saw it again. Because it's like, it made me laugh out loud like several times. All those Bolin jokes or the funny entrepreneur guy. So it's just like there's nothing else quite like the show on TV today. I'm so happy it's back.
Well,
So
it's one of the few Nick shows. This will be my final thought. It's one of the few Nick shows I think that still maintained a high level of production quality. Because it seems to me that the Cartoon Network, the Nickelodeon, and those networks today have sort of dropped their quality off the face of the earth.
It's not the
in my
same.
opinion.
well, and it's not just that they've dropped quality; they've dropped animation in general. It's all live action.
Yeah, that's true.
Teen drama.
iCarly.
Because the thing I go to
Yeah.
Cartoon Network to see is not cartoons.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, I mean, for me, the really high quality animations that we had on TV were Korra, the Clone Wars TV show, and Phineas and Ferb. Phineas and Ferb not for animation necessarily, but just because it's really well written and really funny and smart, And the Clone Wars was like really high production values and did some dark things, and now that's
watch
off
that.
the air. But there is apparently a new Star Wars animation in the works that sounds really awesome. So
Yeah,
I
I
can't
know.
wait till
And
that
a
comes
that
out.
one.
they're finally, now that Disney has taken over Star Wars, going to do something about a live action TV show.
Yeah, I heard about that
Yeah.
too. I'm all excited.
Because they've been talking about that for years and
Well,
years and
there are
years
like
now.
bunches of scripts
Well,
written.
he said he wanted to wait for the technology to catch up
Whatever
for
that means.
because he wanted to do like something crazy with it. And
Well, I
they just
I
wasn't a
remember
budget
reading it
for
was like millions of dollars an episode because like they wanted them to be like the same production quality of the movies as far as the sets and CGI and everything. So, anyways, Star Wars tangent. Gretchen, what were your thoughts on the first two
I
episodes?
really like the art in these 2 episodes, especially with the whole spirit thing, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just excited to see what happens with Korra, and hopefully she starts to grow up a little bit. But
Okay.
yeah, it reminded me of how much I like the show because I hadn't seen it until
Until
a few
then.
days ago.
And
Yeah.
watch
Right.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
It'll give you so much background information. You'll be like,
Yeah. Andrew, what were your thoughts?
Like you said, it's a great show, and I didn't watch the Clone Wars. I need to watch that. That's on my to-do list. And the only other show I watched in like the last year, the cartoon show at least, that was still running
Young Justice.
was Young Justin. And that got canceled like so prematurely, and I'm still bitter about that. But that's a whole another tangent that I'm going to go on. So
Don't get them started.
I'll go on that tangent. But so it was really just this and Young Justice were the things I watched, and
Now it's just Korra.
yeah, it's just Korra. And I've got Korra for 3 more years, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'd swear off cartoons or something.
Like, literally for me, like the only things because I don't have cable at my apartment because it really wasn't worth it. Because the only things I would watch on TV were Korra and college football. Like that's the only things I care about. I don't watch anything else. So that's just me personally. I know there's lots of great things out there like Breaking Bad
So
and
good.
Game of Thrones.
Game of
Yes.
Thrones. Yeah, but I haven't gotten into those
Game of
myself
Thrones.
yet.
Horror story. Yeah.
Oh, well, you like that. You and Clara.
Me and Claire are on top of that. The
On top of
Shield
what?
show. You don't want to watch the
American Horror Story.
Oh, whatever.
I've seen some of
You
it.
don't want to watch the Shield TV show? I guess
Yeah.
it's on
That,
basic.
that does sound good, actually.
That's actually on basic cable.
That
so never
actually
mind.
sounds really bad to me.
It's a Joss
I'm-
Whedon show. Heresy.
Yeah.
I
Come
know,
on.
but see, should I even talk about this now? Or should,
It's fine.
okay, well, okay. The reason the Shield TV show is going to bother me a lot is because it's going to be in the Marvel universe and not be about the Marvel superheroes.
That's fine.
And that's sort of what I like go to. Like I'm not a comic person.
No,
I'm not
that's
like a super. I'm not really into the superhero thing. So the Shield show just really isn't going to interest me a whole lot.
See, it's funny because like there have been comics like that. Like on the DC side, they used to publish Gotham PD, which was just a comic book series about the Gotham Police Department. And that was a really, really good series. So it's kind of fun to watch the like normal people and how they react to superheroes in their world.
I don't know. Like I'm more than willing to give it a try. I just don't expect myself to be that interested in it.
Also,
honestly.
2 words: Joss and Whedon.
Yes.
It's just I don't question anything that man does.
Is he the writer then for it?
He did some plotting for it, and he wrote and directed the first episode. So
And some of the people who did Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog with him
yeah,
are in the writer's
his brother,
group.
his brother,
And
the show.
Marissa.
Yeah,
Yeah, when I saw that for the first time and I watched the credits, I was like, "This is like a Whedon family
is.
reunion."
no, it is. They all write.
That was
stuff
during
together.
the writer's strike, I think, that they did Dr.
Yeah.
Horrible's
They did.
sing-along blog, so makes sense.
So,
Anyways, Ashley, what were your thoughts on book 2?
I'm really excited about the secondary characters' storylines and more development with them there. But overall, I really liked it. Thought it was good. Has potential for the rest of the season. So
Yeah, so I think we're all very excited that Korra is back. So thank all of you out there for listening. Thank you very much, Aaron and Ashley, for being new members on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Woo!
Yay.
All right, awesome. For those of you out there who enjoyed listening to us, you can email us at techheads@avwproductions.com. You can follow us on Twitter at techheadsou. You can like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes. Also on YouTube, we're AVW Media there. We are also on Twitter. I'm at Darth Schmitz on Twitter. Andrew, what's yours?
I don't have the Twitters.
Oh, don't have one yet.
It's,
I've barely used mine, so
I know.
It's
Yeah,
not
I don't
that
really
bad.
use mine.
No. What about you, Aaron?
I'm at Commander Space Feep. If you want to follow me, I'm not
All
really
right.
that interesting.
Ashley, what about you?
at pineapple_9.
Nice.
Yeah.
interesting.
Versus
Yeah,
pineapple
okay.
_8.
Yes,
Because I
of
was
course.
taken.
Well, 9's my favorite number. So
Oh,
I had to
okay.
choose a number.
There you go.
Fair
Are
enough.
you a 9th pineapple?
No, I love Psych TV show.
No, that's a good show.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. My sister watches that show, actually.
I like the I don't remember his name, but the character what's the name of the black character?
Gus.
Gus.
Yeah.
I like the actor who plays him.
Dooley Hill, yeah.
Yeah, Dooley Hill, that's his name.
Yeah.
I really like him, which is why I kind of want to start watching that show.
It's amazing.
Okay. I may have to get a good
Final
episode.
rumored final season. It is the final season. But,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll definitely have to check
It's
that
a
out.
rumor, but we all know
They
it's true.
started selling props last week. It's the final season.
Oh, okay. That's when you can tell when you sell the props. And next week we'll be doing a podcast on the 2 Gurren Lagann movies. We had a couple watching parties for those a couple weeks
Twice.
ago.
We
Yeah,
watched
great
it twice.
movies.
twice in a row. I saw it because I saw it 2 times here, and then when I bought them over the summer, I watched it. So I've seen it like 3 times within the recent memory.
You can't. There's no such
get
thing as
enough.
watching it too much, though.
That's true. I mean, let's be frank, it's Gurren Lagann. So I'm really looking forward to that podcast. So you can look forward to that for next week. And for now, this is Shredded Cels signing off.
Dun, dun, dun.
This product is copyright AVW Productions 2013.